Hello, people of God in our Wausau parishes, and welcome to this week's very important Triduum edition of Quick Things. Also, maybe a little more casual. I've been doing some work in the office and just wanted to take this opportunity to get an early edition out of Quick Things as well, just to kind of make sure we can get on track with folks a little earlier in the week than usual, just because we have so many important things to celebrate, commemorate later in the week. First of all, just a great word of gratitude to the folks who helped us at all three of our parishes get such a great, such a great beginning to our observance of Holy Week. A great foreshadowing, I hope, of what lies ahead as we celebrate Triduum. Some excellent readers of the Passion at all of our parishes. A very prayerful experience. I hope that you would agree with that. And just good numbers of folks who've gathered as well. Consider, it's some kind of inclement weather, but again, just thanks to all those, and not just on Palm Sunday. We have people who help us worship, who make that possible week in and week out, and so it's always dangerous to identify or thank a group of people, because there are so many that we want to thank, and who often are doing things that we just never see and never even think of thanking them. So gratitude for those who helped us get off to a great beginning. I mean, I say that, and then on Sunday night, folks from Resurrection at St. Michael are going to be we're at the Good Shepherd shelter. So, we talk about what's happened in the morning at Mass, and there are things happening in the evening as well that we often don't know about. So thanks to all of that. Thanks to the people who helped us continue the soup lunch tradition at Eastside parishes. Great opportunity for folks to get together and enjoy a good meal and have some conversation. It's been one of the high points of my Lenten experience. I'll get to another one of those in a minute. And also thanks to the folks, the St. Anne parishioners, who have contributed such great effort, time, energy to the fish fries that have occurred during Lent, every Friday night during Lent. My job, or what I signed up to do, is to be a greeter in the main entranceway. And so I've got to talk to lots of Eastside parish members who come and enjoy the fish fry. As really, I've talked to a lot more Resurrection at St. Michael parishioners in my role as greeter than I did of St. Anne parishioners, because so many of them are already working at the fish fry. So I see them there, not in their greeting role. So it's been a good experience wearing my many parish hats in that role at the fish fry. Again, thanks to so many people who make things happen from day to day and week to week. We think of them more clearly as we come now to Triduum when things are so intense, but it's going on all the time. As we gather, well, first of all, a few things of Lent, a reminder. We have Mass on Tuesday night at 6:30, Mass on Wednesday at 8:15 at St. Anne and 12:10 at Resurrection. If you're seeing this early enough, there's also, of course, 12:10 Mass on Tuesday at Resurrection as well. The soup lunch is served on Wednesday from 11 to 1, and the final opportunity for reconciliation is from 5 to 6 on Wednesday. Father Derek Sikowski, who's involved in some pastoral planning work in the diocese, he will be joining me to assist with that. That's at St. Anne from 5 to 6. We ask folks to bring the rice bowls from our Catholic Relief Services almsgiving during Lent. Bring those rice bowls when you come from Mass on Holy Thursday. That's at 6:30 at St. Anne and 6:30 at St. Michael. We can bring them at another time as well. Also, when we gather on Good Friday, there will be a collection that will support maintenance or upkeep of the Christian churches and shrines throughout the Holy Land. As you can imagine, with the war that is afflicting Israel and Gaza, that has reduced the number of pilgrims, people who are coming to those shrines, who often might make donations in connection with their visits. So maybe a more urgent appeal for that maintenance. And included in the Quick Things email is a video from the Franciscan friars who maintain many of those shrines, and they explain a bit of their more desperate need this year. Also in the Quick Things, speaking of videos, is, if you didn't see it last week, the video from the introduction of our new bishop, Bishop Gerard Battersby. I'll talk more about his his imminent arrival, some other things in next week's post-Easter quick things, but you can see that initial video, hear him speak a little bit of his vision as he comes to join us in the Diocese of La Crosse. That is in the quick things email. A few other maybe Holy Week Triduum related links in the quick things as well. So in the thumbnail, it said shattering some myths of Triduum. I'm not sure that they're myths, but misconceptions or misunderstandings that people have. First of all, Triduum is a Latin word. It means the great 3 days. And so that's what we sometimes refer to it interchangeably as Triduum or the great 3 days. And it's not an exaggeration. They are. If we do them properly, if we bring ourselves to them properly, they can be very clearly a great 3 days. So let's look at a few myths of Triduum, disputing those or maybe giving us some better understanding. First of all, I guess the first, maybe kind of preliminary, there's often a misunderstanding that Triduum is part of Lent. Not at all. Now, I like our little black book. Other things kind of encourage that idea, because if you look in the little black book and do continue to pray with the little black book, it includes Holy Thursday, Good Friday, and Holy Saturday. Well, Lent ends at sundown on Holy Thursday. If you remember that, if I've talked about this before, I think the church tells time from sundown to sundown. So Lent ends at sundown on Holy Thursday. And that's how we get the great 3 days, because otherwise, what are we looking at? Thursday, Friday, Saturday? No, what about Sunday? Okay, so Triduum begins at sundown on Holy Thursday, goes to sundown on Good Friday, that's 1 day. From sundown on Good Friday to sundown on Holy Saturday, that's the 2nd day. And then from sundown on Holy Saturday to sundown on Easter Sunday, that's the 3rd day. So that's how we get 3 days, the great 3 days, not Lent. There used to be a priest in Stevens Point who, in his homily for school kids, would give Snickers bars. I'm not sure I appreciated that entirely. That wasn't necessarily the place to be giving out snacks or candy bars. But anyway, one of his questions at a homily that I was at, it must have been like a school reconciliation thing or something that I would have been there for this homily. He said, how many seasons are there in the church year? And let's just count them, because I've let. So Advent, Christmas, Lent, Ordinary Time. And I think that was the answer, was 4. Someone said 4 and they got the Snickers bar. Well, that was wrong. There are 5 seasons in the church year: Advent, Christmas, Lent, Ordinary Time, Easter Time, and Triduum. There are actually 6. I forgot Easter. So there are 6. Triduum is a season. It's only 3 days, but it is a season of the church year, the most important season of the church year. So it is not part of Lent. A second myth of Triduum, that it's not a holy day of obligation, so it's really not important. And so true. If you look at the list of holy days of obligation or opportunity, as I kind of prefer thinking of them, not as an obligation, but as an opportunity to come and give God thanks and praise. If you look at that list, Triduum is not on that list. Holy Thursday, Good Friday, or the Easter Vigil. Well, to some degree, we're on track in that it says not a day of obligation, because, of course, Triduum is 3 days. And it's not necessarily a day, of course, but it is meant to be seen as one unified liturgy. We come on Holy Thursday, there's no real conclusion. We move into Friday, there's no real conclusion for sure on Friday. And then we pick up at the Easter Vigil. So it's not a holy day of obligation. It's not a day, but it is one unified liturgy. But it's really beyond something that can be identified as a day of obligation. It's really too important to even put on a list such as that. It's its own list. It's a list that takes precedence over the holy days of obligation, such as they are. As I've said, think about it this way. If not for what we observe as we gather on those days of Triduum, where would we be? Where would we be, for example, without the Lord's Supper and what Jesus did at the Lord's Supper, offering his body and blood, washing feet, instructing us, commanding us to love one another. Where would we be without the triumph and the sacrifice of the cross of Good Friday? Where would we be without the empty tomb of the Easter Vigil, the light of the Easter candle that shatters the darkness, the light of Christ that shatters the darkness of creation, that shatters the darkness of the world? That's what's part of Triduum. Where would we be without that? So how can we think of it in terms of obligation? It's beyond all of that. Along those lines is the question from time to time. I don't know if I've been asked it this year yet, but does the Easter Vigil count for Easter? Oh my gosh. In the former translation, former Roman Missal that used to guide our worship, it was called the Sacramentary. It described the Easter Vigil as the mother of all vigils. In other words, the most important, most significant, most extraordinary of all liturgies, of all vigils. The current Missal is a little more subdued, but just as important, just as great. It calls it the most noble of all solemnities, which is a pretty strong statement. The most noble of all solemnities. So, does the Easter Vigil count for Easter Mass? Well, it is Easter. If we're only going to come, and obviously we're not going to do this, but if we're only going to come to one Mass, one liturgy of the entire year, the Easter Vigil would be the one to be at. But we're going to go to others as well. Now, I know there was a tradition at one time, and maybe some people still do, go to the Vigil and then come to Mass in the morning. There are different Gospels that can be proclaimed at the Vigil, and then in the morning I usually use the same Gospel because that varies from year to year, and I think there aren't a lot of people who still come to both of those, but you certainly are able to, and are able to receive communion at both of them as well. You're coming to separate Masses for separate purposes. But the Vigil does count for Easter. It is Easter. It counts for more than anything else. So we can put that question to rest, huh? I guess another myth, and maybe the final of the myths that I'd want to address, is that all of these things are too long, and who can have the time to do all of this? And we have other things going on, and I can't come to church on Thursday, or I have to do this on Friday. Well, that's why I encouraged at Mass this weekend that we really do what we need to do to reschedule ourselves to make those times available. Yeah, it doesn't just happen that we're free at 6:30 on Thursday or that we're free on Friday afternoon. But we do also have a 6 o'clock Good Friday liturgy at Resurrection. But if we, hopefully with a little creativity and planning ahead, we can allow for that. I know when I was on campus at UW Stevens Point, the university at a certain point stopped calling off classes on Good Friday or Good Friday afternoon. And I was fine with that because I didn't know why everyone else would get a free Friday when they weren't going to be doing anything but, go fishing or go to the beach or go biking or whatever. Students, though, who wanted to come to worship at 1 o'clock or whatever time we had it, they asked their professors, and the university was clear. If students wanted this time off to go to religious services, they would be given that time. And I appreciated that we kind of had to go to some extra effort to make it important. Not just giving a free day to everybody, but for those who sought time and opportunity to go to worship, were able to get that. And I think there was something to be said for having to make that effort even to seek, time away or to seek, to let their professors know that they were going to be doing that. But the idea that it's too long, and that it's not for families or not for young children. Now, maybe, like 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, maybe not. But I would say first children who are going to celebrate First Communion, this would be a great opportunity, a great experience for them to have an awareness of these wonderful rituals that are part of Triduum. My experience has been that families who come to Holy Thursday, Good Friday, the Easter Vigil, they come every year. When I was at Stevens Point, there were families who snuck into church in the afternoon on Holy Saturday to save seats, because we'd gather at the fire outside and they didn't want to have to like be stuck in the back row or something when they came in from the fire. And I'm not advocating that, and I don't even know if our churches are open on Holy Saturday afternoon to do that, but it was that important for them. I have pictures of children whose parents are washing their feet, or images in my mind of children washing the feet of parents. And I'm talking like third, fourth graders or second graders washing the feet of their parents, or of a neighbor, someone who's sitting in the pew with them. So we do things that young people, children, are going to find fascinating, that will appeal to their curiosity, and will create a Catholic imagination for them. Venerating the cross on Good Friday, similarly. I mean, I can remember doing that when I was a kid. And then the Easter Vigil, I mean, have a fire, and we light candles, and we hold candles, and even a second or third grader can hold a candle and not spill the wax all over the place. When we celebrate baptism, and there's water, and the rituals that are part of all that, and the music, if we do it from year to year, becomes ingrained in people as well. The stories we tell and how we tell them can become part again of that popular Catholic imagination for young people. And while it can be a little long, actually, the Easter Vigil is no longer than two of the most successful, prominent movies of 2023. Oppenheimer was 3 hours long. Killers of the Flower Moon was either 2.5 or 3.5 hours, so both about 3 hours long. Well, the Easter Vigil isn't that long. Plus, in the Easter Vigil, we're moving. We're at the fire. We're going to the font. There are segments where where you can take a break and go to the bathroom and get some water at the fountain or whatever. So it's easier to maybe endure than some of those really long movies were last year. And somehow they were very popular and made lots of money. So let's, not that I want you to think of Triduum in that way, but kind of it's maybe a matter of comparison. What's too long? And again, we have opportunities to take a break, and we're moving around and we're doing things. And so that helps to, I've never encountered people who were exasperated by the length. So now, of course, we do have Mass on Easter morning, but the Vigil is it's such a phenomenal conclusion to Holy Thursday and Good Friday. And if these three liturgies haven't been part of your experience, I hope you will. Forget about all the myths, all the things you've heard. That's what I've tried to dispel here. And I think I've gotten to all of them. That takes care. That's enough talking. We'll have a lot more to talk and pray about as we go into the week, or as we come to our celebration of Triduum later in the week. All of the information has been in the worship aid. It's in the quick things in terms of times and places. Everyone got a card in the mail that has the times and places. We had an ad in City Pages as well. So maybe a few other folks who aren't part of our community might join us, which reminds me that when we gather for these days, let's hope some of those people who maybe are new to our Eastside parishes or St. Anne, they may join us. We all kind of have a role in terms of hospitality, making sure people feel welcomed, also inviting them into the pew, maybe moving into the pew so other people have more easy access getting in along the sides. Those are ways that we can easily welcome people and help them know that they are welcomed, and that we want them to know they belong with us at our parishes as we gather for these great 3 days. I want to conclude with the gospel that would be proclaimed on Monday of Holy Week. It's just before the Passion in John's Gospel that we'll hear proclaimed on Good Friday. And because I've never had Mass on Monday of Holy Week, I don't think, just because it's usually my day off, and we're kind of using that day to get ready for Triduum, to be honest. But I want to share this gospel. It will be appreciated, especially by the folks who are part of our Lenten book club. We met on Zoom on Thursday night discussing Father James Martin's new wonderful book, Lazarus. I think everyone, well, people came back week after week, so I know they appreciated the discussion. I've heard really a lot of positive comments. And it was really one of the highlights of my Lent was getting together with this group of parishioners from all three of our parishes who had some really insightful observations as we made our way through that book. And I would encourage anyone to pick it up as well. Lazarus, or it's called Come Forth, the story of Jesus' greatest miracle by Father James Martin. And so the folks who are in that group will appreciate this gospel from John. But I think, well, it's part of the story that unfolds as we move through Holy Week and then into the Great 3 Days. So this will be our concluding prayer for this Quick Things. 6 days before Passover, Jesus came to Bethany, where Lazarus was, whom Jesus had raised from the dead. They gave a dinner for him there, and Martha served, while Lazarus was one of those reclining at table with him. Mary took a liter of costly perfumed oil made from genuine aromatic nard and anointed the feet of Jesus and dried them with her hair. The house was filled with the fragrance of the oil. Then Judas Iscariot, one of his disciples and the one who would betray him, said, "Why was this oil not sold for 300 days' wages and given to the poor?" He said this not because he cared about the poor, but because he was a thief and held the money bag and used to steal the contributions. So Jesus said, "Leave her alone. Let her keep this for the day of my burial. You always have the poor with you, but you do not always have me." The large crowd found out that he was there and came, not only because of him, but also to see Lazarus, whom he had raised from the dead. And the chief priests plotted to kill Lazarus too, because many were turning away and believing in Jesus because of Lazarus. Amen. Let's be sure to come together to be close to Jesus and one another as our communities gather in the days ahead to celebrate the Mass of the Lord's Supper, the celebration of the Passion of our Lord, and to discover the empty tomb of Easter.